I believe that what I'm doing is a very courageous thing, and it is a little scary that I'm doing this on my own volition. And I still have to look for a job, and I'm still trying to sell my novel. And really, I am on the verge of becoming homeless, and I'm also running out of food supplies. And so I will probably be starving within the next 10 days. So this is the reason why I have to videotape and share my story with YouTube, because the lie is has to stop. I've suffered and have been traumatized by this AIDS, so-called AIDS virus, or HIV, leading to AIDS. And the story, my situation, started back in the 90s when I was supposedly diagnosed with HIV, or being HIV positive. Soon after that, I was prescribed medications, starting with four, and at that point, my the insurance was very, very good. The copay was only $2 um, a month, or per medication, so it only amounted to eight. And then it went up to $4, and then $8, and up until the time when I finally couldn't afford it. I eventually, the doctor eventually pared it down and made the drug cocktail um, down to three medications. And actually, the copay was $100 per medication. So the maintenance cost me $300 a month from an out-of-pocket cost. That is in spite of a good insurance, High School Corporation had 5 months as employees. It was then Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey, and the cost was $100 per medication. So, tying the insurance policies, or the cost of insurance now, uh, with maintenance drugs for heart disease or cancer and HIV or AIDS, then you will be able to determine that the reason why the co-payments have increased over the last 10 or 15 years, because of this idea of maintenance drugs. And when you realize, and I'm speaking from my experience, that AIDS really isn't a fallacy, and it is a hoax, then, you know, a lot of people have been dying because of the medication, not because of the so-called AIDS virus. HIV is a harmless virus, and it's a naturally occurring virus, and it doesn't lead to a deadly disease, which the medical community has been very adamant in selling as being deadly. And not only that, the mass media in the United States have been complicit with it. The reason why many people believe that this is so is because Dr. Peter Duisberg had come out with his book entitled Inventing AIDS back in 1997. That's 21 years ago. 21 years. And it had been featured in the either, I think it's the New England Journal of Medicine or the Yale Journal of Medicine. One of those very highly respected publications. And yet, the press has staunchly and criminally been complicit with the pharmaceutical industry and the and the medical community, keeping the public in the dark about this. So, if you were to trace the deaths of HIV or so-called AIDS patients and figure out why they died, it wouldn't be because of the so-called AIDS disease or the disease that they call AIDS. It's a mishmash of these diseases that are sexually transmitted, and then they called it AIDS-related complex. So it's a complex of diseases, and they bunch it all together and called it AIDS. But in fact, there's no such thing as AIDS. Now, you would have to do your research on YouTube because you will never find it from newspapers like the Wall Street Journal or the LA Times or the Washington Post or the New York Times for that matter. And this is the reason why you don't know that AIDS is a hoax and AIDS does not exist. But you would have to also do your research and find out about Dr. Carrie Mullis, who is a molecular biologist who had won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for devising the polymerase chain reaction test, or the PCR test. Now, the PCR test is the test that is being used ever since to determine HIV infection. Now, if the doctor that invented or devised the test to determine HIV infection says that there is no evidence to link AIDS to HIV or the fact that HIV leads to any deadly disease, would tell you that there are, in fact, many other scientists from all over the world that are in agreement with him in this regard, that this is the truth, and the truth has been kept from us, from the public. Now, once I put this out there, I know that people will still choose to discriminate against me, and they will denigrate what I'm doing, instead of verifying for themselves this truth. And this is why all of us are suffering, because people do not do their jobs, do not do their due diligence in doing any research at all about the truth. Now, the reason why I am also revealing this is because I am trying to tell the public, or open the eyes of the public to the fact that this is just one lie which I have had to live through, and which I feel I've been traumatized. So because of the traumatic experience of being a so-called AIDS patient, I'm going to, or I have been doing research about 9/11, and that's why the video and this YouTube video has Wall Street and the World Trade Center and the Freedom Tower focused. Now, the Freedom Tower wouldn't have been there if the Twin Towers had not gone down. And the Twin Towers had gone down because of 9/11 and all the security measures that are being taken in buildings, and all the airports all over the world. If all the airports all over the world are being run by governments, then for sure these governments are also complicit in the lie.